Hello and welcome to A Critical Dragon, where I talk about narrative in film, television, and books. And today I want to talk about Star Wars A New Hope. But the reason I want to talk about it is I want to talk about how different ways of telling the story emphasize different things. So core aspects remain the same, but the evocation of it can sometimes be different. And one of the fun things, one of the most easily accessible ways of analyzing this is to look at novelizations of films or adaptations of novels. Now, with a lot of the online discourse about adaptation, there are a lot of presuppositions and a lot of, let's call them tensions, heightened feelings. So I thought looking at the novelization of Star Wars, A New Hope, would actually be an interesting exercise to see how it works in reverse, where someone has taken a film. Well, the way that novelizations of films tend to work is that they take a draft of the screenplay and then they write the novel based on that draft. And of course, by the time the book comes out, the film may have been changed, things get changed over time. One of the things this emphasizes is, particularly with Star Wars A New Hope, what is the original story? What is the true story? What is the thing? Because the cinematic release of Star Wars, which I think was 1977, the novelization came out in 1976. It was published before the film came out. And then later on, Lucas took the cinematic release and added new scenes and added new CGI, changed it. So fidelity to source is an interesting concept, particularly when it comes to things like this. And it also goes to how different media use storytelling in different ways, and even how the prose can be used to evoke similar but not necessarily the same things. So the very first thing I want to talk about, we're just going to look at the opening crawl, the famous crawl that opens Star Wars A New Hope. Because I'm not even going to talk about the fact that Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope was an additional tag on, because originally it just was Star Wars. The whole Episode 4 and A New Hope, those were additions to it after the fact. But anyway, let's talk about the initial thing. Everyone is familiar with a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And this opens up the story. And when we think about that, what is it evoking? It is evoking a fairy tale. A long time ago in a land far, far away. It is the traditional opening to a lot of fairy tales. So it is setting the audience up for this sort of mythic fairy tale that they are going to experience. And of course, that's one of the contentious issues that comes up about Star Wars is it fantasy? Is it science fiction? As if it can only be one thing. But the initial evocation, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, you can see the blending of the two things. The traditional fairy tale opening, which would suggest leaning into the fantastic in that more fairy tale folklore and fantasy, but using the term galaxy, which would be more science fictional. It's a blending of the two. What's interesting is in the edition of Star Wars that I had, which was a cheap paperback edition from, I think, 1978 is the edition I have. It opens with another galaxy, another time. That doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? It's expressing exactly the same thing. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Another galaxy, so yeah, it's a different galaxy, and galaxies are far, far away. And another time in a different time period, a long time ago. You can see how they are similar. It's a similar articulation, but it just doesn't have the same ring to it. It's not evocative of folklore or fairy tale. It doesn't really signal the same, what is this story, that a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away does. And I just thought that was a really interesting sort of point to start with, because Again, the novelization came out before the film, even if it wasn't a massive bestseller. But the novelization came out. George Lucas's name is very prominent on it, even though it was written by Alan Dean Foster. It was ghostwritten. Lucas didn't write it, but Lucas's name is on it. So if we look at the book crawl, the little prologue section of the book that mimics or is an evocation of the famous opening crawl of Star Wars. The Clone Wars were over, leaving entire civilizations in ruin. The Jedi Knights were all but extinct, and the Old Republic, the democratic galactic government that had prevailed for almost 25,000 years, had been replaced by the Galactic Empire. Yet the Empire's supreme ruler, the evil Emperor Palpatine, remained hungry for even more power to expand his rule and crush all remnants of the Old Republic. Palpatine had approved the construction of a secret weapon, the Death Star, an immense armored space station that could destroy an entire planet. The Empire was not without opposition. The Alliance to Restore the Republic, commonly known as the Rebel Alliance, led the fight to overturn the Empire and bring justice and freedom back to the galaxy. After rebel spies learned of the Death Star project, they managed to intercept an Imperial transmission of the space station's technical data. The rebels hoped the data would reveal a way to destroy the Death Star. The Empire was determined to recover the stolen plans, now in the possession of a young senator from the planet Alderaan, Princess Leia Organa. Dot, dot, dot. Now, remember, this was before the film came out. From this, because we'll go through the film one in a couple of minutes, but from this, we get the same sense. The same general points are being made. The Clone Wars were over. So it's referencing this science fictional concept of clones, but it in capital letters. This is a proper noun. It was the Clone Wars. This is a big deal, leaving entire civilizations in ruin. So it is suggestive of a galaxy in chaos and destruction. This ruin is on a galactic scale. The Jedi Knights were all but extinct. So again, Jedi Knights, capitalized, proper noun. They're all but extinct. We get a sense that they were the good guys. If the Clone Wars are over, leaving entire civilizations in ruin, destruction, the Jedi Knights were all but extinct. We're seeing further destruction of something. And again, the word knight tying into that folkloric aspect, we're associating with the good guys. And the Old Republic, the democratic galactic government that had prevailed for almost 25,000 years, had been replaced by the Galactic Empire. So the democratic galactic government, we all like democracy. Democracy is where we are at. This is what we favor. And that has been destroyed. But we hear that it lasts for 25,000 years. Like, this is a huge span of time. It gives us a sense of scale. So that's in referring to entire civilizations, in referring to galaxies, in referring to a form of government that lasted for 25,000 years. That's the sense of scale that we are dealing with. And it's pretty impressive. It's epic. And it's been replaced by the Galactic Empire. It's a bit weird that it was the Old Republic. You would think, why didn't they just call it the Republic? But anyway, the fact that it's called the Old Republic, it gives you a sense of the time period we are now in, and it is looking back. So the Old Republic, the thing that used to be there, the Republic, that's gone. 25,000 years, and now it's been replaced by the Galactic Empire. And we fear empire. We fear this top-down notion of hierarchy with a supreme power at the very, very top, instead of everyone having a say. So we can already see the sowing of the seeds. These are the clear lines that are being drawn here. Yet the empire's supreme ruler, again, emphasis on this supreme power, this power at the very top, the evil Emperor Palpatine. Just in case you weren't picking up on subtext, the Emperor is called evil, straight up. And it mentions Emperor Palpatine in the book crawl. Remained hungry for even more power. So the evil Emperor wants even more power. And again, this desire for power we associate with evil, to expand his rule and crush all remnants of the old republic. So he rules the Galactic Empire, wants even more power, and wants to crush. So again, destructive. Palpatine had approved the construction of a secret weapon, the Death Star. If you're naming things, calling something the Death Star, bit on the nose. Death, well, it's with Death Moon. That's no moon. Yeah, but it's also not a star. But, calling it the Death Star, bit ostentatious. It's over the top. It's overt, but it gets across the scariness of this. An immense armored space station that could destroy an entire planet. So again, scale being emphasized. A galactic empire that has replaced a 25,000-year-old democracy. And a space weapon, a space station that is so immense, it's armored, it's giant, and it can blow up an entire planet. The scale of threat being emphasized. The Empire was not without opposition. The Alliance to Restore the Republic. Clearly, in these days, they just didn't have branding and marketing managers who went, you know what? The AR, the ARR, the R, doesn't really roll off the tongue. Commonly known as the Rebel Alliance. Much, much easier to say. Trips off the tongue. That's what we want. The Rebel Alliance led the fight to overturn the Empire and bring justice and freedom back to the galaxy. So again, now we've established who the bad guys are. We got the history in the first one, established who the bad guy is and what the bad guys are doing. And now we're introducing the good guys. The Alliance to Restore the Republic, the Rebel Alliance, led the fight to overturn the Empire and bring justice and freedom back to the galaxy. So it's implying that the Empire does not have justice and does not have freedom. So again, emphasizing how evil the bad guys are, but also these are the good guys. They're fighting for freedom and justice, things that we all agree with. After rebel spies learned of the Death Star project, they managed to intercept an Imperial transmission of the space station's technical data. Fascinating. Yeah. Okay, this is important. Spies got hold of the technical data. The rebels hoped the data would reveal a way to destroy the Death Star. So they haven't analyzed it yet. And again, if you're familiar with the story, you know where this is all going. The Empire was determined to recover the stolen plans, now in the possession of a young senator from the planet Alderaan, Princess Leia Organa. So it sets up, and one would think almost from this, that the principal character, the main character, the protagonist, is going to be this figure, Princess Leia Organa. And from this book crawl, that's the impression you get. It ties into elements of the folklore and the fairy tale. She's a princess. There's an evil emperor. There's a dark, powerful weapon. You can see all of these elements of quite traditional folkloric or fairy tale storytelling. But it's been given a gloss of science fiction because it's galactic, it's in space, it's a space station. The scale has been exploded outward. It is huge, epic, because the timescales and the level of destruction and the power and the reach of the galactic empire, all of this is being emphasized. But when we look at this, this is quite, to use a common word, this is quite wordy. It's not punchy. It's not concise. This is quite direct, overt, telling you stuff. Now, let's compare and contrast this to, now this is one of the versions of the crawl before release. So this is from one of the scripts. And it went through numerous different rewrites. I've picked out one that I could access. It is a period of civil wars in the galaxy. And you look at that and you're like, why not just say it's a period of civil war, singular? But emphasizing multiple wars, it feels kind of awkward. It is a period of civil wars in the galaxy. Again, getting across the scale. It's the galaxy. There are multiple wars. A brave alliance of underground freedom fighters has challenged the tyranny and oppression of the awesome galactic empire. This is a complete change in attitude because we set up again like that opening thing. This is a period of war. This is a period of destruction. This is a period of bad things happening. But now the second sentence is there's a brave alliance of freedom fighters introducing the heroic opposition as the second thing. And they are in opposition to the awesome galactic empire. And you kind of look at that and go, awesome? Again, in terms of creating awe, you understand the use of the word awesome, but the connotation of awesome is they're kind of cool, they're kind of awesome, they are good. So you can see that perhaps this particular draft, where things might be tweaked, that it's trying to get across these things, it's doing it a lot faster than the one that turned out in the book crawl. This is delivering things in a more pointed, direct, and compressed way. What's the major difference here? The book crawl was for a reader who, yeah, something being slightly more wordy is not a problem because you are reading. Someone going to the cinema and seeing this on screen, they're not going to the cinema to read. So you want to distill things down. You want to get them to their essence. You don't want your audience to be spending a lot of time reading. That's quite often not why they're going to see an action adventure set in space. Striking from a fortress hidden among the billion stars of the galaxy, rebel spaceships have won their first victory in a battle with the powerful Imperial Starfleet. Striking from a fortress. Again, that quite fantasy language being used, a fortress, something we usually have more in line with fantasy than with science fiction, but among the billion stars of the galaxy. Again, you can see this evocation of the scale. Rebel spaceships have won their first victory in a battle with the powerful Imperial Starfleet. Now, if you recall, this is the 1970s. Star Trek was huge and a big influence on, obviously, Star Wars. Maybe calling it Starfleet, people would look at that and go, well, that's the term from Star Trek, and they were using it. But it seems more like a placeholder here because it would be drawing too direct a parallel, I think, to Star Trek. But anyway, Rebel spaceships have won their first victory. So this is the beginning of a battle. We're getting this sense of we're coming in almost at the start of this opposition to the Galactic Empire. The Empire fears that another defeat could bring 1,000 more solar systems into the rebellion, and Imperial control over the galaxy would be lost forever. So again, emphasizing the scale, emphasizing the sheer power, and yeah, I've just used scale. The scope of this story, 1,000 more solar systems, that we're dealing with something here that is just blowing our mind in terms of its epic nature. Almost to the fact that it's overblown, it's over-exaggerated, it's hyperbole, it's so large that we can't comprehend it. And that can actually run against the thing that we want to do. Like, there's no mention here of the 25,000 years of the old republic. All we know is there are good guys who are trying to overthrow the galactic empire. And we're told that the galactic empire, the tyranny and oppression of the galactic empire. So we have good guys are underground freedom fighters, emphasized very early on, against the tyrannical and oppressive nature of the galactic empire, the bad guys. So how much of this second paragraph do we actually need? To crush the rebellion once and for all, the Empire is constructing a sinister new battle station, powerful enough to destroy an entire planet. Its completion spells certain doom for the champions of freedom. Interestingly, no mention of Leia Organa, princess or otherwise. But we still have that to crush the rebellion, that this is an evil empire, that they are trying to build a sinister new battle station. But while we still get the information powerful enough to destroy an entire planet, we don't have the same description of the Death Star. We don't even have the name Death Star. Its completion spells certain doom for the champions of freedom. You can hear that wonderful, enthusiastic, almost over the top, the champions of freedom. Again, emphasizing who the good guys are, emphasizing who the bad guys are, emphasizing the stakes of this galactic battle, which I think is fairly interesting. But those differences, you can see how both the book crawl and this original draft, or sorry, I shouldn't really say original, this early draft version of the crawl, they're communicating many of the same things, but they're taking different approaches to it. They're trying to emphasize different things. And because of that, because of the sequence of information, because the order in which we get that information, it actually alters our impression of the narrative and it shifts our expectations. Because now there's no expectation that Princess Leia Organa is going to be a main character. And in fact, we don't even know that this is going to be about the Death Star plans and retrieving them. Because all we know is the Empire's building a battle station. There's no mention of that sort of instigating event of the Death Star plans being stolen or copied. But we still have the rebels who are the champions of freedom, even if we don't have them named. They aren't the Rebel Alliance in this. We don't see that name. We have the Galactic Empire, but we also don't have Palpatine. Palpatine is missing from this. So it is a very faceless, amorphous, overwhelming sense of galactic oppression caused by a bureaucracy and this type of government. And then these freedom fighters. And we specifically get that terminology, freedom fighters. So here is the film crawl from I think it was from the 1977. I don't know if they ever changed it, but it is a period of civil war. Rebel spaceships striking from a hidden base have won their first victory against the evil Galactic Empire. Look at how much more pared down this is. It is a period of civil war because you don't need, it was a period of civil wars. No, it's a period of civil war. So battles everywhere, all part of the same war. Rebel spaceships. So we get that there's a rebellion and that this is in space, spaceships striking from a hidden base. No longer a fortress. No, it's a hidden base, more militaristic. Have won their first victory. So again, we're at the early stages of this rebellion against the evil Galactic Empire. Those are the bad guys. They're a Galactic Empire. Do you see how this is so concise, pared down writing? During the battle, rebel spies managed to steal secret plans to the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star, an armored space station with enough power to destroy an entire planet. So during the battle, this is their first victory. The rebels won, and during that battle, they stole secret plans to the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star. So no longer is the Galactic Empire awesome, it's now directly evil. That the ultimate weapon, again, emphasizing its power without being didactic about it, the Death Star. The name says it all. Look at my invention, this giant death laser. What's it do? It toasts bread. Then why did you call it a toaster? Because death laser is much more interesting. And if you didn't get what it was, an armored space station with enough power to destroy an entire planet. The stakes are there. The scale is there. Pursued by the Empire's sinister agents. So we had rebel spies, but now the Empire has sinister agents. Princess Leia races home aboard her starship, custodian of the stolen plans that can save her people and restore freedom to the galaxy. So we have Leia, mentioned by name. She is being pursued. She is a custodian. So language use here, again, is in that frame more of fantasy than mimetic or realism. We don't typically talk about custodian in that way. It's quite an old-fashioned term. custodian of the stolen plans that can save her people. So the focus on Leia as savior and restore freedom to the galaxy. She is part of this alliance that is opposing the evil galactic empire. This is so much more concise. It gets across so many of the elements and gets rid of unnecessary backstory. There is no mention of the Clone Wars here. That's unnecessary backstory for this film. The Emperor Palpatine, again, turns out to be very important for the entire series, but for this first film, Emperor Palpatine is not an essential ingredient. You don't need to tell the viewer, tell the audience about that initially. That's not necessary information. This has been distilled down into the core elements that are necessary for the film. So we have it set up that there is a period of civil war. In a civil war, you have two sides. One side representing the government, the other side representing the people who disagree with the government. And the rebels that we are told want to restore freedom, that the empire, the government is evil, and these rebels are fighting against them. And because this is their first victory, this is the start. What's at stake here? There are plans for this massive space station that can destroy entire planets. They've captured these plans and they are trying to get that information to someone. We have all of the elements of the opening of Star Wars. So why did I bother going through all this? Firstly, you can see how the different word choices emphasize different aspects. In a galaxy far, far away, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, emphasizing that sort of fairy tale analog. The reintroduction of Princess Leia, not Princess Leia Organa. We don't need her surname. She's Princess Leia. Become shorter, more concise. It's, yeah, they're going to call her Princess Leia throughout. We don't need her whole backstory. It's trimming away, not stuff that isn't useful, not stuff that doesn't deepen and broaden the world, but thinking of this as the very opening of someone sitting down. What is this thing? We're not reading a novel to them. We're not putting a novel up on screen and asking them to read it. That you can see with each of these successive versions, we've gotten shorter and shorter and shorter. That this is the most direct, most pared down, most concise, and it's getting across the key elements. There are plans for a giant space station that is deadly, so the space station is going to figure somewhere in this story, and the plans are going to figure somewhere in the story. There's your instigating event. This tells you what the instigating event is before the film opens. So we're actually starting in media res. For those people who go, oh, you know, this is so weird that these things happen. Star Wars does it. And then later on, obviously, we find out that, you know, the prequel trilogies were, you know, that's the start of the whole thing. And there was an entire story, and this is in the middle of things. Anyway. But the scale is emphasized in terms of the setting, this evil galactic empire, that their weapon will blow up entire planets. There is a sense of scale to this. It's on a galaxy level. It's lots of planets. It's that level of scale. But the emphasis on Princess Leia, the emphasis on the battle, there are these fantasy elements. We know what the instigating event is. That is going to set us all up from the very beginning. Everything is pared down. We've gotten rid of the Clone Wars, who the Emperor is, the backstory of Leia Organa. We've even distilled down rebel spies managed to steal. Like, it's not about they intercepted this thing and then they're going to analyze it to try and find out. None of that. What is it? They have the plan. They stole these plans and now they're trying to get them somewhere. That's all we need to know at this point. So it's not that that other information is unimportant. It's just not important at the very beginning. And this tells you a lot about the attitude toward storytelling and the attitude toward different audiences. With a book, you can spend more time, you can give more detail, you can take your time and add in additional information. That's what books do. That's what fiction does. Fiction allows that exploration. But when we're thinking about it in terms of filming, that it gets streamlined, it gets focused onto key elements, and we pare away a lot of detail, a lot of backstory. a lot of setting, a lot of world building, a lot of all of these other elements, because it is a much shorter, direct form. And that doesn't mean that film is simplistic, but it is simplified in comparison to the novelization. And I just thought, I think that this is an interesting exercise. We so often look at things as fans of a particular work that is being adapted into film. And because we are usually fans of the written work, and we go, well, I know some changes have to be made, and I know it has to change, but why did they have to change that thing? That we are intellectually aware that the medium can dictate significant and very serious changes, but we don't always emotionally understand that, and we react against it. And I think seeing this process in reverse, where someone took the screenplay and went, right, I'm going to write a novel out of this. Alan Dean Foster sitting down and writing the novelization of that screenplay, and how it adds to the bare bones of the screenplay. So if the novel, or if the film had been an adaptation of that novel, imagine if that novel had come out and 20 years later, someone adapted it into a film. And oh no, but they changed in the opening crawl. Why doesn't it mention anything about Emperor Palpatine? Why doesn't it have these things? These are all changes. And this shows you just how this process works, how looking at it in terms of the intended audience of that particular medium, in this case, film, what the expectations are, how they're going to be managed, how they're going to be manipulated, how we cater to different things with different media. But anyway, these are just my thoughts on it. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your continued support, and I'll see you in the next one.